Welcome, everybody. This is Catalyst Conversations, Ep.3. Today, we have with us, just like you've seen before, Gato, Hansel, Fernando, all key members of the BG team. And we stumbled upon a couple different things that we wanted to talk about. But today, we're really going to focus on the massive shift that there is in brands to in-house marketing departments, almost agencies, right? Albertsons recently tapped a key player over at Dentsu and brought them over to launch an entire internal media agency. And that kind of sparked some conversation. And we really wanted to touch on it because we think that there's a lot of things unsaid when it comes to building an in-house team. And there's always a trade-off. There's this trade-off between what brands think that they're going to get, how it affects agencies, the roles that agencies end up coming to have to play after they have these in-house teams, how everything is pieced out from the strategy, research and production, creative, all across the board. So really wanted to get you guys input on this and see exactly, what you guys think and, go from there.
Tell me how you really feel, Ben. I want to get the nitty gritty. Let's get into it. Let's get saucy.
It's long-winded. It's long-winded.
But do you guys think it was more because of speed, because of the way things are changing, or because of cost, or both?
To be honest, I feel like it's a trend that had already been kind of picking up over time, right? Like, to a degree, it's like anything. It becomes a commodity, to have an in-house agency because of the savings, because of the control. I personally, unbiased opinion, or maybe biased opinion, is that like I think that there's stuff that is lost, right? And I think that just to kick things off, I think some of the stuff that is lost when you bring an in-house agency is really just access to a larger kind of pool of talent or rotational pool of talent. One of the things that I think about is let's take Miami for a second, right? Miami is trying to drive a lot of, technology innovation and build that industry here, but Silicon Valley is still Silicon Valley for a reason, right? It's almost has its own gravitational pull of talent, of experts, of innovation. And I think that when you have an agency, and you build up kind of that expertise and that muscle, you attract that talent to come agency side. And I think you lose that when you're so really focused just on the brand, right? In my opinion.
Like on one particular brand, right? Like when you...
Yes.
Yeah, I think so. I think because even we see it, right? Like we'll move teams around, but there's advantages to that. And I think it also has to do with knowing internally what a brand is all about, also seeing shifts and things that are happening that for an internal team, right? It's like having insight. Obviously you're inside and you're getting insights immediately of things that are changing, so you're able to act quickly. So I can see why these bigger brands and everybody is bringing in these internal teams just because of movement, right? I had read an article that 92% of advertisers have built in-house teams. No, I'm sorry, like 80% of advertisers have built in-house teams, but 92% of them are still working with external teams. And it had to do with just a speed, right? Like being able to react and be agile. And we see it even with some of our clients, right? That have like in-house social or in-house, and they need to just create content, and we kind of...
Well, that's what I was going to ask together. Do we know if there's a specific aspect that is being affected the most, right? Like, is it creative? Is it media? Is it social? Like, or is it just equally?
I think it's social. I think we've seen that when you're in-house, you're able to hop on things a lot quicker when it comes to trends, TikTok specifically, Instagram. You're able to do 2 to 3 reels a day, let's say, versus you kind of have to brief an agency. But also what I've seen that's been working and that we see with our clients too is kind of having that liaison between the in-house with the agency, kind of gapping the bridge a little bit of what is the brief? What are you guys looking for? Oh, you're looking for this? Oh, this is how we can help. Oh, you want to plan an event? Don't worry. You can take your reels inside, but we'll do the flyers, we'll do the ads, we'll do the emails, we'll do everything else and kind of support that initiative that you want. And I don't think that's something that in-house can do yet for the most part.
And I think that that's the reality, right? I think a lot of times, and it's important to say, right, it depends on the size and the scale of the brand most of the time, right?
I agree with
you're talking about a Royal Caribbean, you're talking about even somebody like Albertsons who has so much to get done. They can afford to build true agency scale size teams that can handle that kind of work. But the reality is when you have these mid-size businesses that come and build a team of 5, 7, 10, even 15, you can't span everything that's necessary to consider the entire, all the customer touch points.
Correct.
Where we need to be, when we need to be there. What are the opportunities in the market that we can seize? That outside perspective a lot of times gives brands an edge. And that's why, to Fernando's point, 92% of them are still hiring external agencies to come in to fill those gaps, because those gaps are going to exist no matter what with an internal team. You
So I guess
that was the birthplace, in my opinion, that was the birthplace of specialized agencies, right? We were full service, and then we went to, there's web agencies, there's digital agencies, there's social agencies, there's branding agencies, and now there's like this resurgence of full service agencies. Why? Because we need to be able to handle that A to Z for clients.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the question that I have really, like, I'm asking genuinely, right? Because I don't think it's that clear, at least not to me. Like, where do we classify someone fully going in-house agency outside of obviously claiming them so, right? But like every brand team will have a creative team, right? Like you mentioned, every team will have a social support team that works with the agency. At what point do we, quote unquote, officially say, okay, they've gone full in-house? Is it when they take off a complete vertical and say, hey, they eliminated outsourcing, for lack of a better word, or going to an agency for creative because 100% of the creative is there? Or so long as they're doing some creative and getting that gap, are we considering them not fully in-house, right? Because I don't know, right? Like, where do we draw the line?
Well, I mean, I think there's different capacities, right? So if you're somebody like Kraft, right? Like Kraft did an internal team agency called The Kitchen, and they actually have won awards. They've done viral campaigns. They did a campaign where they had so much visibility, they won a Grand Prix, right? So they've done a lot of stuff, right? So and they've had a lot of success, but that's like a full team of some of the greatest minds in at marketing and advertising, and they're bringing them in house, and they're building these teams. I think Liberty Mutual build their own internal agency, right? And they've done so well, they actually started taking external clients. Imagine how crazy is that?
That's crazy.
So how much bankroll do you have to actually build something out, and then if you can keep it there? Because one of the things too is like people think, oh, like once you bring in all the talent, right, which is a really good talent, we all know it's a big investment, So it's like when you can scale when you're working with an external agency, right? So you have the support of an agency to expand or to reduce services, so you can control costs. And I think what some of the things in our research or experience, we've seen that a lot of the times that when people try to bring in great talent, it comes at a great and not expense, I would say investment, right? So now people are also are seeing that in order to bring in new talent all the time, to keep people on board, if you have to motivate them, and that can be costly as well.
I mean, and not to be Debbie Downers, but like, obviously it's happening because there's a positive, right? Like, I'm sure there's like the deep brand knowledge that comes without having to onboard new people, right? Like, there's obviously benefits, right? Like, I mean, I guess that's what just comes to mind, but like, I don't know.
And there is, you're right. There are huge benefits for brands, right? And I have this conversation a lot of times when, when we bring in interns, right? Because I talk to them about the agency experience is really important, and they're all motivated and they all want to work at an agency, and that's what they're striving for. But I always tell them that you need to go also and do an internship on the brand side. You need to experience what client side is like, so that you understand the inner workings of what goes on in there, and that'll help you service them better from the agency side if you choose to go agency side, right? Because the advantage on the brand side and the client side, when they're building these in-house teams, I don't want to say that there's less red tape, because I don't think that that's the case,
right?
But there's just easier movement, right? There's this ability to be able to create content on the fly. You're constantly thinking about that one single account instead of thinking about 4 or 5 or 7. The people who are dedicated there are able to move in and out without any hesitation. All they just need is an approval from a supervisor, right? Because we're not even talking about managers at this point. We're not talking about directors or VPs. We're talking about a supervisor, right? And a lot of times it is a social thing, but social is such a huge cornerstone. And I think it had a lot to do more than anything with organic content. What are we doing on a day-to-day basis to make sure that we stay top of mind, that we stay relevant, and when you don't have agency, the bigger agencies, right? And the bigs, I mean, they assign people in-house. Okay, hey, we're going to put 3 people in your office with you at all times, right? But when you're talking about the mid-size, they can't afford to go that route.
Yeah.
So what do? They hire an agency like ours.
Volkswagen had, I think when Boguski was doing Volkswagen, there was 500 people dedicated to that account,
And they build a building at Volkswagen in
That's
Germany.
crazy.
That was a different era
but look, there is challenges too, because you become siloed too. Like what the great thing, and why I love this job, this work, or the work that we do, or working in this industry, is because I love the exposure, right? And cross entities or cross industry, right? And you kind of see the inner workings of what people are doing, even with customers. It's like, oh, I know that you've worked on this, and because you have that experience, I feel you can help me with this. Sometimes they want us to have experience in their industry, but they like it that we have exposure across and bring in things that we can cross pollinate through, and so what happens too when you have these internal agencies, like what happened with Pepsi in 2017. I don't know if you guys remember that Kendall Jenner commercial with the protest. That was an in-house team. So some people argue that when you have these big in-house teams, and depending on the culture that you have, right, like when people are going to make mistakes, there's not a lot of pushback like there is in these external agencies that have been around for a long time, that build a different culture. So mistakes can happen, right? Or people or executives without an external view of what's happening in the world, like to the point that I was making about having more exposure and having more visibility of culture and what things are happening. When you have an in-house team that's siloed and they're just in the brand and they're like a horse and just focused there, sometimes because you don't have that outside perspective, you're bound to make mistakes like that, which was a bad one, and they had to pull that back and they felt it was insensitive. So there is these challenges too that people are navigating, and what everybody feels is working is just a hybrid model where people are collaborating. I think agencies need to think about the collaboration that they can bring. How do I help you? And give you bandwidth when you have a big launch, when you have things that are more, you need more capabilities, or they're more advanced, or you need more advanced media teams when you're going out and doing $1 million buys. I think that's kind of like where things are playing together. Like when we talk with smaller clients, they're thinking social and they're thinking those kinds of things. But when you think like integrated campaigns that are regional or national, it's a different story.
Yeah.
I think you hit the nail on the head when it comes to that silo perspective, because they're very tunnel vision. They're not really aware of how things can come across. And agency side, when you're looking at different clients, different industries as a whole, you're very much aware of what's going on. And something else that I've noticed over the years too is when someone is in-house, let's say doing digital, social, advertising, anything that they're doing, and they almost become the face of the company, and then that person leaves, and the company no longer has a face. You're no longer associating the company that you thought you knew with the person you thought you knew. And now that company has to build again from the ground up versus having an agency where you have a rotation of creatives, a rotation of people in front of cameras. And it's more like a safe space versus you're risking it all for maybe a student that just left college who wanted experience. And now 2 years later, she's done and your brand isn't really known anymore because nobody recognizes it.
And I think agencies make that same mistake too. I mean, I
100%.
don't want to say that only happens brand side, but you're 100% right. They take the brand with them, you know, so it's so important. And even when we started talking about this podcast and we were all in agreement, like this is going to be rotational. There's no host. And I don't know if our audience has realized that yet, but everybody's taking turns. We might not be here in the next episode and there'll be other people to fill in with the intention of not making it about a single person that can then run that brand, you know, into something else. The experience also, I think, is something when you're talking about a career for an individual, right? This is a whole other thing. When they've been at a brand so long, right? What's the natural progression?
Yeah.
You know, they're going to go to a similar brand, a competitor, and what are they going to take with them? The experience that they learned at X brand, right? Yeah. So now they're stuck in this industry that maybe that they weren't passionate about. You know, they just got stuck there. You know,
or maybe they just want variety. You know what I mean?
Yeah, which is one of the struggles that these in-house agencies have, especially with like a lot of good talent, right? Like, how do you stay motivated? How do they? And that's something that they struggle with. How do we inspire the people to continue to work on this year over year, you know, on the same brand? Like, and we see it with our own creatives, right? Like, they want to experience different things. They want to be challenged, and you know, how many years can you work on the same brand and feel challenged, right?
And listen, I would say something else to add to that I think we you know is easily missed is that, first of all, let me just say, I know this sounds self-serving. We're an agency, but it was because we live it that we can kind of point these things out, right? And with that disclaimer aside, I really want to say from perspective of, you know, when you have an in-house team, it's important to note that some of these people are experts in our field, right? So it's not a talent issue, but sometimes it's a psychology issue, right? So what do I mean by that? Sometimes you'll have the ability of a CMO to say, hey, team internal, this is a big idea that came from the agency. They're the experts and do this, and you kind of have that deferred responsibility, not because they need it, but because, you know, this is why we have an agency. Versus, I think there's something that happens sometimes when you have internal teams where I think other, you know, adjacent departments or leaders all of a sudden feel like, hey, we own it, they own it too, and now you have to kind of, you know, deal with their input because they think they understand, you know, marketing. Some do, some don't. But now you have what feels like internally a more, you know, collaborative or more input from other teams that doesn't necessarily most of the times help. If anything, it restricts. And I think that really plays a role in what we talked about earlier, how big of an idea, you know, you're able to play around with, how edgy or how would you be able to push a trend, because now you're dealing with a lot more voices internally than you would have normally with an agency. And again, I'm overgeneralizing, but you know.
But I want to transition from that too, because I think it's important to note that there is a synergy between the agency and the in-house team that can really
100%.
work and be beautiful. But it's one of those things that it doesn't happen so easily, right? And there's always this tension and friction between who wants to take credit and, you know, who's gonna, you know, out push who on what. And that performance driver is what tends to be, you know, the tension point or the breaking point between that agency brand relationship sometimes. But when you have like this true synergistic relationship with an in-house team and everybody's working collaboratively, it feels like those in-house people are part of the agency.
Correct.
And we're actually seeing that right now with, you know, our client Vicky. Like, their in-house team, although small, has become so ingrained and intertwined with what we do on the day-to-day. It feels like they're part of the agency. And I'm sure for them, we just feel like an extension for their brand. Yeah. So when we're talking about smaller campaigns and things like that, we might just be providing ideas and directions. But when we're talking about the large stuff, they're looking to us as like, hey, lead, right? And that like easy kind of, it's not a tug of war. Instead, it's more like of a, I guess a baton race, right?
Yeah.
And you pass it along, and then that relationship continues to grow, and that's how you win the race in the brand.
Yeah, I think that that's the approach that at least for us has worked, right? Like as partners and coaches, and to some extent, right? Like being able to provide maybe a higher level strategy or vision, and making sure that everything just aligns, right? So that we have a cohesive strategy that makes sense, but letting internal teams kind of do the day to day, where and then we can come in more of a, like I'm saying, like a coaching role or a consulting role. I think that agencies do a better service to themselves too when they take that approach, right, as a partner and trying to help internal teams be better. Because at the end of the day, if the internal team improves and they help you do the things that you need to do in order to bring value and reach the business goals that we agree on that they're trying to reach, we all win, right? And I think that just having a good synergy between the two teams is extremely important.
Gato, I know I was going to ask you something specifically because I know you've been brand side. So I wanted to get your insight on that side.
Yeah.
So you having been part of, Acorn on the brand side, right? I know that you were there for a while. So now you got an inside view on a lot of the in-house challenges. Talk to us about that.
Well, specifically there, I think on the brand side, when it's something much bigger than, let's say, one of the smaller brands we had talked about, this is more like corporate setting. When it comes to marketing, it's almost an afterthought when it's in-house. In-house, it's marketing is the first to be cut. In-house marketing is the first to drop a budget, drop a head, lay off. There's a lot of tension in the sense of there's very little people doing the job of a lot of people. So it can create friction on those specific corporate accounts. Now, I've been also on the brand side for beauty and a very smaller brand, and that was very quick. That was very, here we have an idea. Okay, let's shoot this right now. Oh, let's publish it. Let's put money behind it all in one day. I will say, though, the results are not the same.
Why is that? Like,
I think because
quality, you mean?
Not quality, but knowledge. In my opinion, I think the second that media planning and media spend, somebody tries to bring that in-house without any knowledge, like that's where it's done. That's where an agency truly understands what to put where, the retargeting, the specific channels, the specific campaigns, how to push it, when to push it. That's something that in-house, especially for a small brand, they're not going to know how to do. As much as they research it, they're just not going to have the tools. Unless now you want to talk corporate, you want to talk bigger. Okay, they probably have someone in-house to do media planning. Yeah. But you're looking at these medium, small companies, they're not going to have somebody to do that. They're not going to have,
or they're going to have one person doing too many disciplines, right? Like There's a reason why some of these disciplines, like you can't have someone doing media planning, social, search, and like they're all separate disciplines. And he's like, oh, this one advertising guy, right? Like,
exactly. And that takes us back to that what we were saying. Like they can't think about every single customer touch point. Like unless you have a sizable team that's trained to do it that way.
Now, I mean, but that might change, right? I mean, like the reality is, the one thing we're not kind of mentioning is AI is, and I know it's like, oh my God,
oh my God,
you have to put $5 in the AI jar.
But that's the reality because look, Meta, right? Zuckerberg came out and straight up said that they're working on a platform where they're going to put together from beginning to end. You're going to be the brand. You're going to go and say, this is my brand. This is my product. This is my budget. This is the target persona or the people I think. You're going to put it into their platform and they're going to do it from A to Z.
I'm sorry, but if that's anything how their Meta business platform is now, where they make you call them or get random phone calls, I fear we have nothing to worry about.
Zuckerberg.
They have the worst
Listen, you might regret those words.
Maybe my great grandchildren. Like, there's no way.
Well, but my point,
we're gonna get Black, listed.
Yeah, now that's it. Hey, listen, there goes
we were
our
asking to pitch this episode. We got banned.
Yeah, no, not even. There goes our cost per acquisition through the roof. I was like, tomorrow, it's like we were paying $30, now we're paying $150. Thank you,
You're actually
Adam.
listening to me right now. I'm gonna get a phone call.
They're listening to everything. That's the thing that you don't realize.
Like, all right, so then where do we go from there, right? Like, what?
Yeah.
Obviously, this is affecting us daily. This our industry. Where do we go from here, right? Where do we fit now with technology changing, with the expertise, right? Because that's what it comes down to. Some of these brands bringing that expertise in house.
I think that's the key word is you have to be world class at your discipline. Yeah. You have to be the best. Like, you might not be the best, but you need to try to get to be the best. Like, and it's something that I think is personal, right? To your craft, to your career, to what you love to do. You have to work at it every day, and then you'll get the opportunity to stay. It's just the reality.
It's true, because there's a competitive aspect to it also, right? I mean, the agencies produce better work typically than the in-house teams, more than anything, because of the fact that they are competing with other agencies for that title, for that agency of the year, for that Lion, for the Addy. And that competition is healthy, right? I mean, I'm not going to bring up any other competitions, but that competition is healthy. Yeah. The reality is that when you have an in-house team, they're not really worried about that kind of stuff. They're trying to hit a metric. And then, although we care about the performance, we care about the metric, we also know that we're going to be judged by our peers. And that in itself is one of those things that's like, okay, at all costs, our creative has to be so to par with all the other agencies that we know we're going to put out good work that will 100% be effective.
I was just going to say to that point, like, I think agencies have a lot more pressure to perform, right? Like, because our contracts are yearly, maybe 3 years, 2 years if you get lucky, 3 years if you're really good, and so you have to meet the KPIs. You have certain metrics you have to beat that you have to meet when you're an employee, right? I'm not trying to knock any. It's just, I don't think the pressure is the same, right? Like, to perform,
I think you and Gato actually hit it on the head in the part where I was talking to a friend, Michelle Kovas, who's also in the industry, and we were literally having this conversation, and she brought something to my attention that I thought was going to be the opposite, where, more boutique agencies overall, with the rise of technology and all these brands going in-house, that boutique agencies specifically were going to be the first to get hurt. And, we're having a conversation about how her stance is that actually boutique agencies are the ones thriving. And I think they're thriving, to your point, Fern, because you're being hyper, specialized, even not necessarily in a tool, but even just in an insight, right? Like, I know how to engage Hispanic, or I know how to engage Gen Z in a way I can make things culturally relevant in a way that is, breaks the norm, or it's not what you're going to get from AI. And I think brands realize this, and then if you're able to communicate that and find that, and obviously expand, right? But if you can lead with that, I think you're right, Fern and Gato, like, that's where, that value proposition really, really exists now, I think.
Yeah. Well, it's also the agility to act on it, right? Like,
true.
How fast can you do it? Like,
like we talked about last time, right? News jacket.
But with boutiques, right? To our advantage, right? Is that we can see something, present it tomorrow, and get it into motion in 3 days or 5 days or whatever. There's a lot more red tape, and I know this is a different conversation, but I'm just saying to boutiques' advantages, right? Like, boutique agency advantage.
Yeah. Well, I think on that note, I think we've laid it out, all the cards on the table.
I will say I have one more hot take that my grad school professor told me.
Okay. You want to drop his name? One time? You want to drop the professor's name so that
I'm not going to drop the professor's name.
Professor Galvez.
He was an NYU professor, and I called him the shark because he would
That's it.
Literally calling your name and make you stand up and be like, how much do I have to pay you for you to lose your ethics? Like that. And then he'll be like 100,000 and you'll say no. He'll be like 150 until you get to a number. And then he'll say everybody has a number. Oof. But anyway, I digress. He always said to run away from in-house because you're limiting yourself. That's just, I'm not being biased or anything. That's just what he said. And then he always said that if you were in-house, you could only be in-house max 2 years, and then you needed to leave because you were never going to get a salary raise that you wanted. And that's where I leave that.
She said the F word, so that now everybody wants to talk about it.
No. What I was going to say is just reflecting on on the whole conversation and talking about Liberty Mutual at the beginning, that it kind of shocked us that they would let their in-house team start working on other accounts. Yeah. Maybe that's why, right? Like retention, right? Like True. Giving people the opportunity to work, to be creative, and also they maybe saw the value in learning their employees or their creatives learning about other industries, trying to see what they can bring from one place to another, and then also like if you're working on other accounts, you're probably billing like an agency, which allows you to pay people more, right? So I think that's an interesting thing that maybe bigger brands should consider, right? To your point and to that insight that Caro just mentioned.
Well, that was great. Well, guys, I think we've covered our topics. I want people to think both brand side, both agency side, that the most important thing for me is that the synergy is really where it lies. It can be a great synergy, can be something that is very fruitful if you work together to establish those gaps and deficiencies where that agency can come in and help. And at the same time, that internal team feels the benefit of having that offloaded, because one person can't do it all,
Yeah. And if there's anything we missed, agree or disagree, let us know in the comments.
Yeah. Thank you, guys. This is episode number 3, and we'll see you soon.
Bye.
Bye.